Can someone? Okay, that's
Okay, live now.
Is your network?
I don't
Please,
know.
someone should come and take over.
Please, where they bring charger.
Chargers. Have you told some
Alright,
things?
I think my work is done. Yeah.
So it's not confirmed.
It's not done.
It's no longer
Audio.
live.
Audio.
It's no more longer live.
Yeah, it should be live now. Refresh.
Go to Kora. So click on the live. It's a, click on the play the former live. Make I go in front. Also, real time.
You won't see it real time.
It's not sure I do.
Like 5 to 10 seconds.
Wait, did you do like that voice
That one is not personal system.
Is yours?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. That makes sense. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think the audio is working. I'm going to show you.
Yeah, the audio is fine. But once we use the microphone, it will be a lot simpler.
Please ask someone to bring my charger.
Charger, this thing will die. This thing will die now.
I need to be watching the YouTube. There's no need because it's not live.
Check that battery. That battery integration.
It's low.
Yeah, like how many pieces right now?
7.
Okay.
For what? I didn't hear.
for the upload? Because your upload.
Ask Sundown.
It's not charging. No.
Okay.
Is it Kora that is in
What do you want?
Yes, no, I'll give it to
Please
you.
help me on that.
Give me the phone.
Everyone the number.
One who na like today.
Everyone,
Like better like
who has the number?
no, me dey like that. You know, but she no go hold am like this and they come dey answer you when keyboard.
So this is going to be the most
Manage it. This is not what wanted. Move, mute the audio.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for honoring this event. This is one of the many events that Kora Pay will be organizing going forward. We want to set the standard, make sure that this industry is very organized. So we thank you very much. And you know, in this our fintech industry, people don't know people. You know, like you can just see it. Most of the companies, their names are bigger than the CEOs and the managers actually. You know, so when people hear Piggyvest, you know, they don't know that Somto is the CEO of Piggyvest. When people hear Kora, you know, and different, so many companies, you know, this is a way for us to start coming together as an industry. You know, like what is happening in other industries, so that we can form a pressure group, not only coming here to learn. When you hear from the founder's mouth on how he started, Kora didn't start like this, in this air-conditioned office. I'm sure in one of the sections, you know, maybe not now, future section where Dixon will sit and he sits down to tell you his story, you will know that Kora actually started, you know, with a lot of sweat, with a lot of fighting, you know, so this is what this kind of event can do for all of us, so that we can hear each other's story, to encourage ourselves to be able to do more, you know, and in forming a pressure group for the fintech industry is very, very important. Like some time ago when the CBN seen the fintechs about, there was nothing they could do. A lot of people relocated outside the country. There's no pressure group. There's nobody to actually talk to the industry and say, look, you know, this is one of us. You know, this is something that we have to start building in from going forward, you know, and since nobody wants to take the lead, Kora has decided, okay, we'll take the lead in this particular instance, you know, so that we can organize ourselves, meet our regulators, just the same way the bankers committee. You can't just walk in and try and intimidate a Zenith Bank or an Access Bank. Other banks will rally behind them, or Pharmaceutical Societies of Nigeria, or Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. You know, we need to start building ourselves, you know, and collaborate more, you know, so that we can achieve more in the industry. So once again, I welcome you all, and let's open ourselves, ask questions, you know, and we need to take very good benefit of this section, so that we will know that Kora didn't actually waste money on this event, you know. So thank you very much. Ask questions, and you know, and learn. Let us learn, you know, from these founders and these panelists that we have here. Thank you very much, and have fun. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Please, another round of applause for him, please. Mr. Peter has such a grounding presence here at Kora. He helps us in some incredible ways, helping us with introductions, and most importantly, just helping us make sure that we have our head, you know, screwed on straight every time. And you know, thank you so much, sir. How many of us here know the CEO of Kora? Can you point to the CEO of Kora?
No, someone is coming out.
Wait. Stop pointing to me, guys. I'm not the CEO. And you know, and Mr. Peter is right. A lot of the time, the companies are bigger than the individuals in them, and nobody has done like a good job of making sure that the company isn't about him than, you know, this man right here. Dixon is our CEO. Please, you know, just turn around and see your face. It looks like a Gen Z that just came into some big money. But Dixon is so serious. We don't usually see Dixon around in the country. By the time he comes into the country, like it's just like, you know, pushing things move really fast. Yeah, without further ado, we'll get into the first panel. But before we get into that, two quick announcements. Mr. Peter talked about asking questions. And indeed, we have some big powerhouses coming onto the stage today talking about the fintech, you know, on the continent and in Nigeria. And we have opportunities to ask them a lot of really good questions. And we've created an avenue to be able to do that. If you go to korahq.com/ask. You are able to drop questions that the panelists can can answer on stage. So if you can right now, just pull out your phone, go to korahq.com/ask. Yeah. Yes. So, you can ask some of the questions. I will make sure to answer them on stage. The second, I see a couple of us, holding on to our drinks from here. Pick up all of these glasses, just to make sure there are no accidents. We try to be careful here in Kora to make sure that everybody comes, and leave as a whole. All right. So, again for coming. All right, I'll introduce our head of and partnerships, Adesola Oloke, who is going to host the first powerhouse panel on B2B sales growth in Africa. Please help welcome Tola.
Thank you so much, Benga. And we are so excited to have every one of you here this evening. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence. We don't take it for granted. So I'll just go quickly into it so that we save time. Could the panelists for the first session please just come up? We're having MI, Oye, Frank, and then Deepo. Could you please join me on stage? Thank you.
Many of you that don't know, he's actually a very shy person. So I had to pull him to this stage. And for many of you that are wondering, he's actually building a tech company. So please put your hands together for him.
Thank you, Dixon, and welcome, MI. Thanks for putting away the glasses. So we'll just start with brief introductions. I'm going to start with the lady, because popular saying ladies first. I'm a lady, so ladies first. So I'll start with you, Onye. Within just 30 seconds, could you please just introduce yourself, what you do, let us know you better. Thank you. Introduce yourself.
I'm the CEO of Pay on Us, a payment processing company. We're heading to 2 years in operations. Well, we're an upcoming Kora Pay. Up and coming Kora Pay.
Thank you.
So that's it.
Thank you, Oye. Good job there. Tipo.
All right, so my name is Ola. I head the sales department at Transact World Digital. We're a licensed payment solution service provider in Nigeria. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jude Abaga. I'm the CEO of Task. We're not completely fintech, but fintech, it's embedded in everything, if you want to make money. So, but what our solution is going to do is going to be a digital talent agent for Africa's creatives, help them find opportunities and manage their workflow.
Okay, my name is Frank Atat. Work for FCMB right now. I'm not a CEO yet, but I rub shoulders with more people who are CEOs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, MI, Deepo, Oye. So we just go right into the questions. So the first question, Oye, right? Starting with you again. So this evening we are talking about adaptive B2B strategies for African Fintechs. We are looking at how African Fintechs scale, Fintech scale in Africa. And when you hear the first question I'll be asking you is, looking at the African landscape, I would say, what do you see as the most significant trends that in B2B Fintech growth in Africa right now? And then how can businesses leverage these trends? So what are the trends that is driving B2B growth in Fintechs in Africa at the moment?
Okay, we can to be growth in. Let's just take them under these 5 headings. Digital payments is still what's driving the growth substantially. Then we have open banking. We have cross-border payments. We have regulation. Let me say regulation because in the last 5 years, so many regulatory policies are being formed, and these frameworks are now driving entrepreneurs to now develop solutions that will further drive digital adoption across the country, across Africa, sorry. So when we're looking, financial inclusion is the last one I was thinking about. So when we're looking at this 5 broad categorization, all of them kind of like feed into each other, right? The more people are financially included, the more people tend towards digital payments, right? And then the open banking has given API, tech space has information with which they're able to interpret what the people need, like what the unbanked and banked need, and then it drives solutions that are able to deepen fintech within the African space. In 2020, financial exclusion rate in Nigeria was at 32%. 3 years later, it dropped down to 26%. In that 2 years, 2020 to 2023, sorry, 3 years later, what happened? What were the changes? Virtual banks, right? POS proliferation. So you could say in that 3 years, because digital banks now made opening accounts a lot more easier, they were able to convert seats. Now, if I say 26%, it doesn't mean much. But when you apply it to the number of people in Nigeria, that's close to 60 million people, right, that are financially excluded. If you translate that to 2 transactions a day, if you're able to convert that number, it starts to add up. We operate in a space that is a number space, right? I keep telling people, doing 1 billion naira transaction means nothing. But if you can do 3,000 10 million naira transactions, so that is where the value lies. And so we have to, within the African fintech space, we have to go back to the drawing board. That 25% that's still unbanked, what do we need to do, right? Because digital banks have come, they've converted their own 6%. What is the need we need to address, right? To move some of those numbers to banked, which will further translate into digital payments and push the fintech space a lot more further. The open banking, with the open banking and the API adoption to open banking, we also need to start building interconnectivity amongst ourselves, because we still work in silos. The commercial banks, they have their ecosystem. The fintech, they have their ecosystem. So interspersed, we see once in a while you see connections, but we haven't built a wholesome ecosystem. When it comes to the cross-border payments, there's rarely any conversion or any remittance you want to do that doesn't involve up to 3 currencies. Even when it involves 2, you might have to do a zigzag movement to be able to complete remittance. So even across the Africa space, we need to encourage each other. And if we are able to get to a space where Central Bank of Nigeria sees Central Bank of Ghana and sees we are able to start driving our space much more further than where we are now.
Thank you so much, Onye. Can we please appreciate her? Thank you. Really like when you mentioned open banking, right? Open banking has really opened up Africa. When I speak to people outside of Africa in Europe, they sometimes don't understand how open banking works, right? It's really like a mirage to them. And financial inclusion too has really increased, I will even say reduced poverty in Africa. Like if you look at number of people that MoneyPoint, for example, has bettered their lives and stuff like that. We have the latest unicorn in the house, MoneyPoint, is coming to tell us their success story very, very soon. Okay, without further ado, let me just move to the next panelist, Frank. With global economic pressures that we are seeing, not just in Africa, but globally, we're seeing that Donald Trump just won the American election, and there are jitters all over the world right now with Ukraine, and Russia war is like it's never ending, and you see Israel bombarding Iran, and I don't know how many times fuel price has changed in Nigeria. Like, we don't know, maybe it's going to change before today, like before before we sleep tonight. So there's a lot of economic pressures that is happening, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa and all. So Frank, I just want to know, how should African fintech firms adapt their B2B strategies so that they are more resilient, they are more sustainable in these uncertain markets? Thank you.
Thanks. I think any uncertainty, there are opportunities. This is probably the time when the fintechs in Africa will get more richer. I didn't hear any clap. Honest. Brought up the issue of cross-border. So I think this is where we need to strengthen cross-border rails, because it means that we're going to get more info. We're going to get more output, because trade is also now. If you take down to Africa, again, I see a lot of changes happening in terms of trade being more. Why? So all of the companies that are happening in the hotspot, Trump is going to insist that trade within the US becomes the power. And so you see a lot of collaborations now. Economics in different countries to favor the Americans. So what do? We begin to focus on the things that we need to drive that interaction. And that's why I believe that significantly for our tech businesses, the resilience comes from being very adaptive towards the kind of product that will drive interest. You also know that Trump is very big on immigration. Therefore, a lot of our folks out there will be thinking of how they need to quickly start building foundations in Africa by sending funds to invest in things that they can readily come back to. Again, it's the area where tech or our partners need to start focusing on developing, which is why I believe that, again, increasingly, a lot of our fintech partners are going to be very wealthy in terms of the returns they will get on whatever investments they do, and how they scale in terms of the product they come up with. So those uncertainties we think about now is only going to affect those who are not well prepared. Especially when you have somebody who is a bit unstable in his thinking and very pro about how America can be great again. So, and I think that's where we need to really focus on. Outside that, oil price too is not going to change much, because again, if those conflicts don't happen as we're expecting, then you will see a bit of stability. So whatever interest there is for the tech team the tech partner to scale in terms of the product they need to come up with, those are some of the key areas they need to focus on. Are they going to be turbulent in terms of some areas where we will not enjoy some stability? Yes. Again, the reason why America still has some significant say in a lot of things that happen. But I do know that in terms of business continuity, in terms of currency strength, the US dollar is going to be at peak. And if you must know, if you are trading in USD or you're holding USD now, I think you hold it more, because you're going to enjoy the benefit of, for Nigeria, without us really focusing on our economic planning, we'll get returns, because for every time, and I think, again, maybe another area I believe we need to start being very much interested in beyond trade is in agri, because I know that for now, the US are going to stop buying oil from a lot of countries. And so, because they're also trying to create some sort of monopoly for their own oil. They are very pro climate change, they're very pro gas. And so if we have tech partners who are also investing in those areas, this is also the time to straighten those rails. But I know that one thing is very sure. A lot of our folks out there are going to start pumping in money to build stuff or invest in areas where they know sustainability is guaranteed, and probably so to make more money because people are going to save more. So to think about some USD commercial papers you can develop for those who want to get returns. Kora Pay, think of expansions to areas where folks will send in money. So maybe if you are looking at German corridors, you are looking at some East African countries where people are day settled. That's why I think the resilience will then come from. Anything else will just be an add-on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. Very spot on, spot on. I like your emphasis on the Japa and Japada syndrome. There's going to be a Japada kind of syndrome where people start sending money home, right? Because east, west, north, or south, wherever you are, home is always home, right? So there's going to be a lot of investment in Africa. What that means is that there's going to be a lot of remittance inflow. Are we prepared for these inflows? So this is a gold mine of opportunity that is waiting for us. Thank you so much once again, Frank. Thank you. MI, I'm going to ask you, you're next. So we're seeing a lot of music talents right now. I remember when I was quite younger. Please permit me, I'm in the millennial era, right? So when I was quite younger, right, then listening to music was kind of like a big deal. There were no YouTube, Spotify, all these music apps. We put the radio on our air. I really love music, by the way. Then you'd have to rewind, write down the lyrics, rewind, write down the lyrics. Like, it was such a big deal. But we've seen a lot of songbooks. Songbooks, yeah, Rufai. You're in that era. I can see people in my era. So we bought those songbooks, yeah, I remember. But right now we're seeing a lot of tech into music, right? And we've seen the evolution. We see so much of that. Now, how do you see tech impacting in music? Not just in Nigeria. Look at Nigerian music. I go to Europe. I go to the club in Europe and I dance to African music. And I go to the club in Europe. Please pardon me, I'm a millennial, but I still try to dance, enjoy myself. And there's a lot of African music, right, in Europe, right? So how do you see that nexus and how tech is going to impact music, not just in Nigeria, but also Africa and globally? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, first of all, the industry we're talking about, which is like the world's consumption of content, is about $2 trillion. And it's doing really well because the more tech products are developed, the more human beings get their time back, the more they spend in consuming content. And so, who works in that industry? A lot of young people. Africa has millions of those. And with digital access now, a young person in Africa can work anywhere in the world. We've seen it in other parts of the industry where, like, for instance, Andela is a great example of developing engineers here and exporting that resource. The second thing that's going to happen is that creators are going to want to own their businesses more and more. So I think it ties into the conversation we're having about B2B here, where you've looked at an industry that has largely had very large players, and then everybody else works for those large. See more and more of what we're seeing now with like LeBron James and what's Clutch Sports or Jay-Z and Rock Nation. Like creators are going to have more and more access. Don Jazzy and Maven, you're going to see that from the north across the continent. I foresee a future where Africa becomes the dominant player in the creative sector over the next 20 years. We have all the untold stories. So what does that mean for this sector and maybe this conversation? It's like there's a lot of money that is going to need to be protected. Hello? It's going to need to be protected. It's going to need to be transferred. It's going to need to be insured. It's going to need to be guided, you know? And to me, that's the interest in this space for me. It's that we do need to get involved. They are just returning our physical artifacts, our masks, you know, and we're on the verge of selling them our digital artifacts again for pennies on the dollar. And I think that the thing about fintech, just to take from what Oga said at the beginning, is that you guys are not just successful business leaders. You are actually the young business leaders of our generation. You know what I mean? Like the generations before, they had the guys that built the banks, but we have the guys that are building the fintechs. And so you mean more to us. You inspire us. You are our industry's leaders, and our industry is going to produce a whole lot of value for the world. You know, and there's work to do to make sure that that value stays. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jude. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you. Deepo. Okay, Deepo, over. So for Deepo, what are the most effective strategies for customer acquisition in the African B2B fintech space? What do you think are the strategies for acquiring customers in the African fintech space, especially when working with small and medium-sized businesses?
All right, thank you. For salespeople, questions like this can be typically tricky, especially when you see the likes of Money Point and your other competitors here. However, okay, so I think when it comes to B2B sales, it can really be complex for many reasons. But the first thing I'd like to say is that I think that is very important is that we build for businesses, but you sell to people. So what that means is this. I will just try to, I know in terms of the global body of knowledge for sales and marketing, we'll talk about the 4 Ps: products, price, placement, promotion, right? But for the purpose of this event and adaptive strategies, basically, when it comes to B2B, I would like to share a few adaptations of the Ps for me. So the first thing will be profile. You can't sell to a business you don't know, obviously. And I think one of the things we probably miss out is even when we are B2B companies, sometimes we forget that our businesses that we serve are actually could be B2C. And your solution is as effective when it's solving the business problem as well as that of their customers. So you must have that big picture view of where exactly are your business is selling to, right? Then the second P for me would be the problem, really. What problem are you solving in the market? It's quite very complicated for businesses, especially because for a typical SME, right, there are just myriad of problems he has to solve. He has funding issues, logistics, finance, accounting. Payment is just one of it, really. So you have to see sales to SMEs as consultative sales, because for every problem they don't solve, you are the solution provider, even if that's not your business. So just imagine, for instance, you want to serve a business that's just at the very early stage of their digital transformation journey, say probably an e-commerce platform. You built your solution today, but the truth is that even when you present these solutions, they're asking a lot of questions. What platform can I use? How do I manage my catalogs? Even when you show those solutions, the next question is, who will take the pictures for me? So you still keep uncovering a lot more problems. So ultimately, you have to think about the entire ecosystem, right? And also, what are their priority moments, which is another P, right? Some of them are just trying to survive. 2 categories of businesses, possibly in Nigeria today. One that probably just he just wants to eat. So whatsoever, at that point, you may not be able to marry their aspirations with your solution. Then you have the one that is actually planning big for his business, so to clear what their priorities are at the moment. So these are business level type considerations. We also talk about partnerships, which is very critical. And the advantage you have as a B2B fintech is that you are able to connect the dots for them. So a lot of times you probably have a business that has a solution for the other business you're selling to. So if you don't build partnership into your strategy, then it's going to be a challenge for you. level, if you bring this down to people level, the most important P, it has to be the personas, right? Because the truth is the biggest the biggest border within SME business is movement between one persona to another persona in the decision-making journey of an organization. That's where you see the social boundaries, the religious boundaries. You'll be shocked that even for a tech company, the major decision maker is not tech savvy. So you have to kill those assumptions, one. Then also you have to be able to be present. Presence is another P. It goes beyond. So the memories of markets to us when we're growing up, right, is not just where people buy and sell. If your mom says, follow me to the market, you're very careful. Because most likely the kind of gist and conversations that will happen there, right, you won't be able to manage those. So those social interactions still are very critical, right? And when we are building and selling, it's not to eliminate, but rather to improve those as today that is really thriving. Lastly, this is just a scenario I want to paint. One of the big markets in Africa today, let's say, that's in Nigeria, Lagos, you have a computer village. What does a typical sales process look like? You walk into a store, you find someone, you ask who is the boss in charge here, right? And then they tell you, they introduce you to somebody, right? After, the endless pitching and the likes, you want to agree next steps. You are very excited that you've closed the deal, but the reality says that you, very fantastic, I'll tell Oga when Oga comes. 2 questions you. Number 1, who is Oga? Number 2, you. Now, this is very important, and I think this is the most important part of what I want to say. So the moment you ask, for instance, there's a particular culture or tribe in Nigeria, right, who have a very different business systems, which is the apprenticeship system, right? You discover that they got put time into you, right, for that long, and at the end of the day, it says when Oga comes. I am curious. Was so interested in what you're saying, not because of the business, but because of the model of the business where he works. He is an Oga in his own right, because when he's done, he's setting up his business. That leaves me with the most important question. Who is for the next Oga, and how are we selling to them? Thanks.
Thank you so much, Diko. Absolutely correct. And let me surprise maybe some of you in the house. Our CEO, Dixon, actually had a store in Computer Village at the time. Mr. Peter was saying the other time that Dixon didn't start here. I would say he started in Alaba and he really took it down, Alaba and Computer Village. Thank you so much, Diko. That was really spot on. I don't know. Does anybody know how many languages we have in Africa? Do you have an idea of how many languages we have? Okay, let me just give you an idea. We have over 3,000 languages here in Africa. Over 3,000 languages. So imagine you are a fintech, you are expanding into 54 countries in Africa, and then you have to customize your solution. Even when you look at the top languages, we have over 10 top languages, from Arabic to Swahili to Yoruba, French, all over. Now, I'll just like to, Dipo, this question is for you. I'm going back to you again, Dipo. Given this variety of languages that we have across Africa, right, how should B2B fintechs approach communication and support for clients in these different regions? How should they?
Okay, so this is a very big challenge for every B2B fintech, because I used to work for a company who tried to do that, right? When you look at the entire customer journey, from onboarding, there's a contract, right? And every of these details, you have to find a way to localize your communication, right? I think for me, the first thing is, as much as technology is there, you have to first still understand what are those social factors and cultural factors that play a role. I'll give an example. There are things we don't look at. So you don't go to sell a product without considering the Jollof factor. The same thing cuts across moving from Kenya to Tanzania, right? It's still the same bias, the same sentiments and the likes, right? So I think that one of the things that probably Chinese guys would do. If you come to Nigeria today, if you want to set up an account, there's actually a body of Chinese interpreters. They are Nigerians today. But that we don't look at those guys and to what the extent to which they can help to enable our business. At the same time, when you're moving across borders, these people, these systems exist. Do we even engage them when we are doing our feasibility studies at the early stage? Right, that's the first thing. Then I think the second part that is also very critical is, from a communication standpoint, you can't play down the role of UGC, user-generated content. Really, there's no better way to sell or to communicate to you than involving not just you, but your own customers in my communication strategy, right? Because for content that their customers generate, it's able to appeal to every local, social, and cultural sentiments that may be critical to the success of your business. So we need to, again, back to the profile, understand not just your customer, who are their customers, include them in your plan, and help find a way to also include them in your customer strategies. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dipo. Thank you, Dipo. That was brilliant. Now look at partnership with banks, telcos, other traditional sectors. I remember MI the other time, he mentioned that the older generation, they built the banks, right? But this new generation, the next generation, are building the fintechs. Now, how do we now see this partnership with banks, with telcos, and other traditional sectors? How do they play in effective B2B fintech solution? How can these partnerships evolve and work together? Frank, I don't know, could you please help us with that? Thank you.
I was hoping you asked different. I mean, every time this comes up, my simple answer is collaborations. And that might sound simple, but there's a whole lot embedded in that. And I think today the success of Ifeanyi and I have to, with all respect, I have to say to you that today we talk about money points. We don't talk about Tosin or Ifeanyi. And it's sad, really. We talk about Kora, we don't talk about Dixon and the rest of the guys. Talk about. Somehow, these companies become value propositions they have brought to the industry. But how did it start? It started with somebody conceptualizing an idea and having a partner who was open to crystallize that idea. It's better to speak my voice and okay, so I mean, when you think about it that way, there's no good saying the fact that it's very important that banks collaborate. Because where I sit, and a lot of the things I have seen, which today has created success, is that people who sit down to think through things 24 hours, who sit to make it happen in terms of maybe the infrastructure we provide or the advisory services we offer. Why? Because the guy conceptualizing this idea has brought a lot of effort into making that happen. And I don't think that can ever happen if you are in the bank side. So it's very critical that as we go into the next phase of things, we need to strengthen that collaborative effort and make sure that the thought process, the market approach, the sales, everything, all the ingredients that will make it possible and successful is embedded into that company. I mean, become wiser now. Gone were the days, I mean, in the early stages where somebody will just come with an idea and he thinks that idea will sell. And it requires somebody who really understand that process to walk him through. Now people are doing research, closed user group, and then coming with some sort to sit down in a forum and discuss it. So I think we're going to see a lot more, and there's a greater understanding now with even those in the bank. And I struggle a lot of time when, as banks, we try to fabricate, try to emulate the fintech in terms of product development. We don't have that skill set. And I mean, I know this is recorded, but it's important that we recognize that those who have the intelligence, who have the skill set to do what they're doing, are blessed with that. And so we need to give it to them. and then just make ourselves quite open to collaborating, but knowing that because of regulation, we stand a better chance to provide that advisory, provide that coaching, mentoring, to make sure that whatever product is out there is fit for purpose. It has the value that will drive the kind of resultant expectation, and then knowing the kind of cultural perspective we bring to bear in everything we do. We need to fit that in and make sure that we don't contravene regulations, we work and abide by what is very important, which is to ensure that the integrity of whatever product or whatever value proposition you are bringing is watertight. And when you then look at the security aspect of that as well, everything is synced together to make that product one that cannot be questioned. I think if we all have that perspective in mind when we are either engaging the financial institutions or working together as a group to address the needs that we know is very apparent, I believe that there will be a lot more success stories to tell. And we just only have, I also believe that in the next 1 year we're going to have more unicorns because they are greater awareness, and some of those competitions we used to have within ourselves is no longer necessary anymore, because we then realize that we can build on each other's strengths, right? The different products that we have, whether they are both in cross-border payment, we know there are a lot of opportunities with different cultures that we can focus on and address specific needs. We now know that, before the big thing used to be go to Europe, go to the US, go to UK, and you consider yourself an immigrant or successful. Now there are a lot of immigrants in West African countries, East African countries that are even doing better than those that are doing. And they still need channel to fund or repatriate anything they're doing. Because, just recently, I think, just recently, I was telling me a story about how in Sierra Leone, there is a community of Nigerians that are holding down transportation there and making it successful. Now, when those guys want to fund anything, how do they repatriate those? They have to find a channel that will make that possible. So, next 1 year, next 2 years, there's going to be a lot of crazy development that we see. And we're not going to be looking at Europe or the US for funding. Remember, there's PASS. Nobody has looked at how PASS can break down the barrier for a lot of the exchanges that we're seeing today. And I also think that's where we also need to put a lot more focus on. And that's also where collaborations come in. So if we say we are forming a pressure group, and we should look beyond CDN, we should look to, and you know what, this is also a challenge. Why can't pressure group focus on bringing other central banks to be the one to be there that CBN will now say, see these countries central bank are the ones enjoying all the benefits they are meant to enjoy. Because that's what we did to change CBN's perspective around how fintech is running. CBN do not understand why these boys are doing all of this crazy things. So they decided to say, you know what, guys, let's have a conversation. And that's why they are this today. It's the same thing with the banks. As highly regulated as we are, CBN doesn't recognize the fact that where they are not catching up, they need to also understand what's going on. And that's, if you don't see, that's some kind of collaboration too. Because if you don't do that, if today banks cease to exist, there the CDN, we should. And if today, if there's no fintech anymore, I tell you, there won't be banks. Because they are both drivers of the economy. And that's where it gets interesting. So, guys, next 1 year or more, say a lot more unicorn, because people will now know that they need to focus their mind towards developing propositions that are critical to the growth of the economy. And maybe the next unicorn will be from